Street photography is notoriously difficult. There are just a ton of variables that you don't have any control over. You have control over like where you position yourself, your camera, and your settings, but there are a ton of things that you just are totally outside of your control and just happen seemingly at random, like what people decide to do, where they go. There's just a really big element of the unknown in street photography. With that being said, there are a lot of things that you can do to increase your chances of getting the types of photos that you want. There are a lot of things that like catch my eye now in terms of like what I look for in street photography that will give me like better chances of getting the types of photos that I want to take. But so in contrast to that, there are a lot of mistakes that I think you can make. And when I say mistakes, I don't think they're like inherent mistakes. I think that you have to decide for yourself what is a mistake. And with street photography, everything is very subjective. It's an art form. It's not a science. It's not a sport with a score or anything like that. So I think that you need to decide what constitutes a mistake to you, and then you can avoid photographing those things in the future. And I think the reason to do this is to not waste your time. We don't have unlimited time to be out on the streets photographing. Everybody has their lives and responsibilities and whatnot. So you need to be, or at least I like to be, productive with the limited time that I do have to go out and do street photography. So in this video, I thought I would talk about some of the mistakes for me that I consider a mistake. And so these are things that I prefer to avoid. And in doing so, I can spend more time photographing the types of things, types of photos, types of compositions and subjects that I do want to photograph. So the first one I'll talk about is not getting close enough to fill the frame. Everyone's heard Robert Capa's quote on, if your photos aren't good enough, you're not close enough. I don't know if those are the exact words, but you get the gist. I don't necessarily think that you always have to get incredibly close, but you need to be close enough to fill the frame with the compositional elements that you want. So sometimes that might mean that you're further away from a subject because you have some other element or layer that's in the frame that serves as a substitute layer for like a person. But in general, I think a lot of times, for me at least, like the types of photos that I want to take and like to take are pretty close up with layers of people, in that a lot of times means like a person being in the front layer, in the foreground layer, like a meter or closer away from me. And that's just me. You might like to take different types of photos. I think street photography is very subjective in a lot of ways, and that's one of them, which is preference for the types of photos that you like and that you're drawn to. And there's a very wide range of of styles in street photography. But for me, that's often the case. Like if I come home from doing street photography and I have, and I go through my photos, a lot of times the reason for rejecting a photo, it's just oftentimes that can be one of the issues, is just not getting close enough to fill the frame. And sometimes it's like, outside of my control, but other times it was my fault. Like I either acted too late, missed a moment and didn't act fast enough to like get close and close that distance to like the subject or whatever it was. And then other times it was just like, out totally outside my control. My general point is that it's something that I need to think about consistently, like, and stay on top of, and just be aware of that. Like sometimes I need to get closer in order to get the types of photos that I want. So the second one I'll talk about is not culling photos enough in the editing process. I think all photographers probably like tend to like have this issue to a certain extent, which is basically you go out there, you schlep all your gear around, and you take your photos, and you spent all this time and energy doing it, and you want something to show for it. But that doesn't equal a great photo. That doesn't make a great photo. Sometimes you put a lot of effort into photos and they just turn out like utter trash. And it's not easy, but you have to accept it. Or you're gonna be like oversharing and sharing a bunch of photos that just aren't very high quality, which is like, I mean, I guess it's not a problem, like a serious problem, like no one's gonna die because you overshared photos. But just at least for me, like I would like to have like a standard that I meet for like the quality of photos that I share. And obviously my highest quality photos I want to save for like my portfolio and books and whatever. I think the more you photograph, the easier it is to get rid of the photos that don't make the cut. I've just noticed over the years that these days it just makes it easier to get rid of photos that don't work, because you already have like a body of work, a portfolio to show, and a body of work that you can be proud of. But like when you're first starting out, I guess it's definitely more of an issue, because you're like, I want to get the next photo and like show my work and all that. And you just kind of have to like resist the temptation a little bit early on and just be patient with it. So the third one is very simple, and it's just not photographing enough. We all get busy, we've all got lives, especially if you're doing like street photography projects, which are often, like personal projects. And, probably the majority of street photographers out there are not doing street photography, as their profession, because that's like really hard to do. And so most street photographers probably have like a full-time job that's like either unrelated to photography, or, I'm sure there are also a lot of professional photographers who do street photography on the side, but it's usually like a passion project. And so the result oftentimes is just like not having enough time to photograph, which is fine. But there are also other times when I know, at least for me, I have passed up opportunities to go and photograph, to do other things or just be lazy or whatever. So like I need to, remind myself and get motivated to go out and photograph sometimes, and just like practice the habit of photographing in general and doing street photography, partly because it's just a great habit to be in, and also I want to create a body of work, and that's just not going to happen if I don't go out there and do it. So the fourth one I'll mention is heavy-handed post-processing. I think I've kind of gotten over this, but sometimes I would be a little heavy-handed with the sliders in post-processing, either with like the colors or the sharpening or the texture, clarity. I try to keep the photo editing to a minimum, like put my little spin on it. But yeah, you don't want your photos like looking like they were like dipped in like raw sewage or something. You don't want it looking radioactive. The fifth one is using big and heavy gear. I didn't have like the option in the beginning when I started street photography. I started off briefly on a DSLR, like a Nikon DSLR. But so I just see quite a few photographers on social media or wherever online who use pretty big gear for their street photography. And I actually don't think it's a problem I don't think it's a problem at all, actually. It's just like, for me, it's not for me. And I know that, like, say if I used like a big zoom lens, I probably would like enjoy like having the range and would get, value out of having the telephoto option, or like a zoom lens that went out to like 50, a 24 to 50 or whatever, like that newer Sony lens. But so like, yeah, I would get value out of it, but it's just like, I know that I would have in the back of my mind, like, this is dragging me down, and that might lead to me like not leaving the house to go do street photography, and would probably, yeah, just in general make me want to do street photography less. So it's just like the type of thing that I want to avoid for myself. For other photographers, I don't think it's actually like a problem or a mistake, unless you feel like me, like where it's weighing you down and making you want to do it less, and it makes you want to not take it with you when you leave the house. That's when it's a problem. But then, yeah, on the other hand, like larger cameras can like, be very like effective and like have a lot of nice features. And it's kind of silly, honestly, when I think about comparing like the big cameras these days, like, a mirrorless camera with like a zoom lens or whatever, when you compare that to some of the cameras that photographers had to use, back in like forever ago, when, had to lug these huge cameras around. We have a lot of convenient options these days. But so ultimately, I think the important thing is to figure it out for yourself. Like, do you like do you not mind using a larger camera system? Or like, are you like me, where you kind of need a smaller system in order to like, take it with you everywhere and all that? So the sixth and final one I'll talk about here is not studying the greats. So not studying like the masters of the genre. There were photographers who came before you, you know? That's like the important thing, is that all of these important photographers like laid the foundation for us today to be doing this. Like they like came up with the genre. Can you even imagine like doing it yourself if you had never seen other photographers do it? Like it's kind of hard to imagine that. And I just think a lot of street photographers wouldn't have even thought of like, you know, documenting the world like this without having street photographers that came before them. There's so much value to be had from studying great street photographers and going through their books. I think that's the best way to like study their work, is to, you know, see their projects in book form. And it's just such a like elevated, better experience than consuming photography on social media on small screens. With street photography books, like the photographer, you know, like they may have traveled to this place where they shot the work. They worked with an editor, like they had like a real publication that was like, we'll give you this, our stamp of approval for publishing this book. And so it goes through iterations, and the photographer has like thought a lot about the photos themselves and the sequencing, and just like a lot of work and effort goes into these books. And it's just not the same with you know, consuming photography on social media. So those are some things that I consider mistakes in street photography. And like I said previously, these are street photography mistakes for me. And some of them I've like kind of overcome. Other times I need to think about more so that I can avoid them. But like I've determined that these mistakes are things that I want to avoid, so that I can spend my energy on creating street photos around things that I want to photograph, and that will result in photographs that I'm going to like. So that's it for this one. I'm curious to hear if there are some things that you consider mistakes in street photography. Share it with everyone in the comments below. Thanks for watching.